You came along and everything started to hum. Still, it's a real good bet, the best is yet.
That's on Frank Sinatra's grave in Palm Springs. The best is yet to come. When I sang in Las Vegas 3 shows a night at the Desert Inn, Frank Sinatra owned the town in those days, and all of us young singers would sit ringside to see the master perform his craft. I knew someday I'd meet Andy Smallwood and regret it. They'd introduce me at 4 a.m., the 4 a.m. show. That was the one that was always for the losers, and it's kind of nice to see a couple of you guys I haven't seen for a while. And they'd say, here he is from San Francisco, the baritone barrister, better known as the singing sewer. And that introduction reminded me a little of the one that Andy gave me tonight. I appreciate it, Andy. Andy invited me to speak at his district conference when he was a district governor. And he said, I want you to sing Bali High out on the beach somewhere in Mexico. I said, I'm not going to sing it on the beach. I usually sing with a band. He says, you're going to sing it on the beach in Mexico. And so sure enough, I had to sing Bali High and Andy Smallwood's district conference. Sherry and I have been to well over 500 district conferences over the years, and I remember Andy's was one of the very, very best. It was a wonderful conference, wonderful conference. President Ron Burton and Jetta, thank you for your magnificent service. Rare, rare leadership indeed. Ron, one of the wonderful things about Rotary is the friends that you make. Paul Harris had 3 friends join him for spaghetti that night in Chicago when they started Rotary. And if there were no other reason for me to be a Rotarian than to meet people like Ron Burton and Andy Smallwood, Mike Pinson, Don Mebus, and other friends that I have here, it would be reason enough for the years I've spent in Rotary. Many, many governors here tonight. Rotary is filled with governors. We got governors-elect here. We got governor's nominee. We got governor's nominee designate. We have assistant governors, area governors, lieutenant governors, past district governors, and the rest of you, if you miss the meeting, you'll be a governor too. I know that you missed the meeting where you picked next year's club president, and here you are. And after having been here a couple of days, it's probably come as a shock to you that your current club president was actually trained how to do it this thing last year. In my home in Silicon Valley, I have a Finnish sauna bath. I usually have a sauna every night around midnight. I'm in there stark naked, sweating after my wife has gone to bed. The dogs are outside the door waiting for me to come out, jump naked in our pool, and I sit in my sauna, stark naked, sweating, reading the Rotary Manual of Procedure. Even stark naked and sweating, that's the dullest book you'll ever read in your life. And one of the things I read in my sauna bath are newsletters I get from governors all over the world. Most of the governor's newsletters now are put out electronically, but I still get paper newsletters from many, many districts, and I read them at midnight, stark naked, sweating in my sauna. Recently, I came across a newsletter that was sent to me by the district governor in District 5050. Half the clubs are in Canada, British Columbia, and half in the United States in the state of Washington. And this newsletter caught my eye because it says, in praise of past district governors. And I thought, isn't this nice? Because not everybody likes past district governors. So I read this article, and there's not a word of accuracy in it. But here's a picture of the man who wrote the article. I know you can't see it, but he had been in Rotary about 6 months when the district governor asked him to write this article. And because there was so much mistake in it, I had to write him a letter telling him how great it was. because I learned that he was a federal judge in the District of Washington. And in my business, it pays to be on the good side of federal judges. In praise of all of the governors who are here tonight, let me just read you a couple of paragraphs. Now remember, this guy had only been in Rotary 6 months when he wrote this article, so you have to discount some of it. Rotary International has more than 1 million members worldwide. It is estimated, though not confirmed, that there are approximately 900,000 past district governors all over the place. Why is this, he asks. Well, the ordinary member of a club, a usual Rotarian, like other individuals in society, dies when his or her time comes. Not so with PDGs, who simply do not die, which accounts for the relatively large percentage of them with respect to the total membership. Now, how are the district governors chosen, you may ask? And I know a couple of you grabbed me out in the hall, and well, that's another speech anyway. The actual selection process was and is mysterious, and no one seems to know where these people come from. The research in this all-important area is continuing, but based on the profile of the 953 PDGs in our district, now he's off by 943, but he's a federal judge, so who's counting? One may assume the following. First, you must be a Rotarian of at least 35 years and have perfect attendance during those 35 years. Second, you must have a personally autographed picture of Paul Harris hanging over your mantel. Third, you must have a terrific sense of humor. Fourth, everything in your house and business must have a Rotary logo on it, even your pajamas. Sherry and I have a Rotary wheel in the ceiling above the bed where we sleep. We sleep in a California King with a wolf hybrid named Duchess and an Alaskan Malamute named Duke. That's not another Rotarian, that's a big hairy dog. And every 2 or 3 hours, the Rotary wheel in the ceiling lights up and it starts to sing my theme song. Sing out a song of Rotary, we're in the business of mankind. The wolf puts her ears over her paws, goes, ow! And the dog climbs under the bed because he can't stand the singing. Fifth, your spouse must want to follow you to the ends of the earth, even to the district conference. Sixth, you must be able to make a bad speech 122 times without ever getting it right. 7, you must be able to eat rubber chicken every meal for a year. And 8, you must have retired after selling out your business for $2 million or gone bankrupt, one or the other. Now, the job of district governor, he writes, is not all cookies, of course. There is certain hardship incurred with the job. For example, the average weight gain of the current district governor during his or her year, what with constant banqueting and excessive drinking, is roughly 28 pounds, and even more for their spouses. Sociologists and geriatric consultants to Rotary International have concluded the spouses have particular trouble because they've got to listen to the same lousy speech 122 times and often therefore engage in compensatory eating. He writes, I once knew a district governor's wife who gained 5 pounds each week for a year. Now she just avoids various foundation dinners, the district conferences, and her husband's speeches. She can keep her weight normal. But then he gets very, very serious and solemn. None of this answers the question, however, why past district governors are so venerated, so respected, and so loved. Again, I'm not certain, he writes, but I think there is something just so lovable about a PDG sitting at a specially reserved table, mumbling the 4-way test as his face slowly lowers into the P's. Kind of gets you right there, doesn't it? Well, I can tell you, there is something to this weight problem. Before I became a district governor some 35 years ago, I used to be real skinny. And about 3/4 of the way through my year, I was coming out of my sauna bath one morning, dripping wet with a towel around me that wouldn't reach. Now, my wife was a dancer in Hollywood and Las Vegas. I met her in my Las Vegas review a number of years ago. I saw her cross the stage one day in her costume, and I said to myself, there goes a girl who really ought to be married to a Rotarian. So I drafted her away from that dull Hollywood life, so she could follow me around the globe listening to my speeches. But she tries to keep her weight normal, and she does yoga and calisthenics, all this stuff. I don't know what it all is. And she's physically fit. So I'm standing there with a towel around me that wouldn't reach, dripping wet. And I could tell by the look on her face, we were going to have a conversation I wasn't going to enjoy. We did, and I didn't. She said, "Why don't you get fit?" Now, a lot of people think this is a fabricated story. I've told this story for many years because it's true. This is exactly how it happened. True. She went to Woolworths, and she bought a little trampoline for $29.95. You don't get a big trampoline for $29.95. It's a small one, about a third the size of that table you're sitting at. And she stuck it up in the corner of our bedroom, underneath the rotary wheel in the ceiling above the bed where it lights up everything. And it looked like a little spaceship from Mars. And I said, "Sherry, what do you do with that?" She said, "You jump up and down on it every day and you'll get fit." I couldn't think of anything I'd rather less do, but I thought, what the heck, I love my life, I'll jump. Because I'm not as dumb as I look. And I began jumping up and down on this trampoline every morning, and I hated every minute of it. But I discovered on the third day, they've got great reruns of Leave It to Beaver. And on the third day, true story, I got so engrossed in the plot that I came down on the edge of the trampoline instead of in the middle, and I broke my leg. And I was so happy this happened after only 3 days, and I could throw that trampoline away. And I got get-well cards from my Rotary Club presidents who loved me and respected me and esteemed me the way I know you are going to love your president, your governor next year. And one that I've saved all these years kind of sums up the sentiment of the club presidents in my district. The president in his very busy presidential year, took the time out to write me a personal get-well message. "Dear Governor Rick, we want you to know that the Rotary Club of San Lorenzo, California, by a vote of 17 to 15, hopes you recover." Which I thought was a landslide, considering that club. Touching P.S., we were going to send you flowers, but that lost 5 to 27. Well, yours is a big job next year. In addition to loving, respecting, and esteeming your district governor, your job, in one sentence, is to change your Rotary Club from what it is to what it ought to be. I've come across a lot of definitions of leadership in my lifetime, and the one that I think is the best I've ever read says this: a leader is someone who influences somebody else to do something. It involves influence, motivation, inspiration, vision, challenge, guts, conviction, commitment. A leader influences people to a course of action. And in order to change your club from what it is to what it ought to be, it requires uncommon leadership, the best that is in you. After all, next year, you are Rotary's expert in membership recruitment, membership orientation, membership assimilation, membership retention, membership extension, vocational service, international service, club service, community service, youth service, club bulletins, club meetings, club public relations, club attendance, club finances, club fundraising, club social activities, the club assembly, club programs, club projects, getting your members to attend the district conference, getting your members to attend the district assembly. You're the expert in the Rotary Foundation, Paul Harris Fellows, Paul Harris Sustaining Members, benefactors, major donors, group study exchange, youth exchange, friendship exchange, district grants, community grants, global grants, Polio Plus, Interact, Youth Act, Early Act, Rotaract, RILA, the Rotary Village Corps, pilot programs, peace forums, disaster relief, World Community Service, Foundation Scholars, wheelchairs, future vision, strategic plan, substance abuse, not yours. And on the seventh day, you can rest. Sit down, you can't resign. I saw you people standing up, you're trying to resign on the spot. That's why we lock the doors. I'm a California golden bear, so I don't usually pay much attention to anything that comes out of Stanford University. When I was at Cal Berkeley as an undergraduate, I was the first vice president of the student body, and I'd lead the cheers on how we were going to kill the Stanford Indians. In those days, Indians, now they're the cardinal or a tree, or I don't know what they are really. But a number of years ago, I read a speech given by one of Stanford's great alumni, the former President of the United States, Herbert Hoover. I've read and reread his speech many times over my lifetime, and I want to read to you just a paragraph from Herbert Hoover's speech at Stanford University. Among the delusions offered us by fuzzy-minded people is that imaginary creature, the common man. It is dinned into us that this is the century of the common man. The uncommon man is to be whittled down to size, he said. It is a negation of individual dignity and a slogan of mediocrity and uniformity. But the greatest strides of human progress have come from uncommon men and uncommon women. The humor of it is that when we get sick, we want an uncommon doctor. He wrote, if we have to go to war, we seek the uncommon general or admiral. He said, if we have a child in school, we pray for that uncommon teacher who can bring out the best, inspire our child to its greatest potential. If we're running a business, we look for the uncommon salesman, the uncommon manager, the uncommon engineer. Indeed, all that is good in our life has come to us from men and women who have dared, often in the face of great peer ridicule, to reach out and be uncommon. And more than ever before in all of human history, Rotary seeks the uncommon president to lead its clubs this year. Because you see, if it isn't done in the club, it doesn't get done. That's where the work of Rotary is done. And it all falls on the most important officer that Rotary produces, the Rotary Club president. And that's why you're here at one of the nation's greatest Presidents-elect training seminar from Oklahoma and Texas. And that's why I'm with you tonight, because I believe in that what we do is God's work on earth. And I believe there are three characteristics essential to be an uncommon Rotary Club president. First, a conviction that what we're doing is important, what you know about Rotary. Second, a vision of the potential for your club next year, what you see about Rotary. And third, your commitment, what you feel about Rotary. Rotary is a powerful organization, some 35,000 clubs all over the globe in well over 200 countries and geographical regions. On one occasion, Dwight Eisenhower said, "Governments seldom solve people's problems. Governments are necessary," he said. "They serve a vital function in society and we need them. But normally it's private citizens who solve people's problems the best." And then this great American statesman went on to say, "And in the business of private citizens solving people's problems, no organization in the history of the human race has the track record of Rotary International." This is the organization which you are called upon to lead this coming year. Leadership requires a commitment and a conviction and a vision. And it is important for you to understand that what we're doing is important. If you don't believe it's important, you will not be a successful Rotary Club president. Every second of the day, we make the lame to walk, the blind to see, the deaf to hear. We clothe the naked, we feed the hungry, we heal the sick, we save lives, we bring hope, we bring peace. I was having dinner on the banks of the Nile River in Cairo, a wonderful evening spent in the company of a retired general from the Second World War in the Egyptian Army. And we were talking about Rotary's role in peace in the Middle East. And he said, you know, Rick, in your part of the world, when there's a problem in a community to solve or a global outreach to make, you come together in the capacity of a Rotary Club and you talk peacefully about how to get the job done. In my part of the world, he said, we don't do that. Instead, we kill each other. And then he went on to add this profound statement, and until we have more Rotary clubs in the Middle East, we will never have the peace that we so desperately seek. Because tonight, as we're meeting here, Arabs and Jews meet in the same Rotary clubs throughout the Middle East. Hindus and Muslims meet in the same Rotary clubs on the border of Pakistan and India. Catholics and Protestants meet together in the same Rotary clubs on the border of Ulster and Ireland. Men and women of every race, every color, every creed, every language, every politics, every religion, every education, every profession, royalty, heads of state, foreign ministers, ministers of state, business leaders, religious leaders, cultural leaders, educational leaders, athletic leaders, entertainment leaders, people wearing the Rotary wheel all over the globe. And everywhere it says Rotary International. This leadership is more than management. I once read an article in Fortune magazine. The title of the article was Wanted, Corporate Leaders, Mere Managers Need Not Apply. It went on to talk about the number of MBAs we graduate every year in this country and how many businesses every year are managed right into bankruptcy because there was a failure of leadership, influence, comprised of conviction, vision, commitment. And second, what do you see for your club next year? What is your vision? No great leader does anything without a vision. You know, the average Rotary Club that I've visited anyway is made up of very unaverage people. They are usually of above average incomes in society, above average education, above average achievement. They are goal setters, successful people, or they wouldn't be in Rotary for the most part. And yet we bring these goal-oriented, successful, achievement-oriented people in their business, personal, private lives to the Rotary Club on Tuesdays at noon, and we start talking to them as if they were in the second grade. We set goals out of timidity and fright that are so low in our Rotary objectives that if we set those objectives that low in our business and personal lives, we'd go bankrupt. And sadly, too many Rotary clubs are bankrupt in the business of Rotary service. That is our business. And we're in the space that a lot of businesses would love to be in, because never before has there been such a demand for our product of service. And so it is that someone once asked Helen Keller, blind, deaf, unable to speak, "Miss Keller, can you think of anything worse than being blind?" "Oh yes," she replied, "having sight and no vision." And so what do you see next year? You know, I was on the original polio fundraising committee in this country, 1984, 85, 86, to start out the Polio Plus campaign. A bunch of us were on that committee. We knew nothing about fundraising. So we hired a fundraising organization in New York City to teach us how to raise a lot of money in a hurry. And they said, you've got to set a goal for every Rotary Club in the world. So we did. We got a lot of hate mail. A lot of clubs didn't like that. There was a little club in a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 30 Rotarians. The club was 40 years old. And every year when the district governor came around and asked for commitments for the Rotary Foundation, for membership growth, for attendance at the district conference, the club president, one year after another, would say, the steel industry is down, the coal industry is down, we're in a recession. Governor, we simply can't do any better than to hold the club together. They gave a total of $1,000 a year to the Rotary Foundation for 40 years. In 4 decades, they gave $40,000. And we sent them a letter. And we said, we'd like you to raise $100,000 for Polio Plus. And in 8 weeks' time, the same 30 Rotarians who for 40 years had never raised more than a total of $40,000 over 40 years went out and raised $120,000 cash in 8 weeks for Polio Plus. What happened? The same Rotarians, the same losers who always had those excuses, the same club, the same meeting place, the same name, but a different club president. Someone who saw the potential, what that Rotary Club was all about. And then at the end of that year, when the parade passed by, they were a Rotary Club because of the vision of their club president. The vision requires 4 steps, if I may give them to you for your consideration. First, you have to have a numerical goal. How many new members net are you going to achieve for your club next year? It isn't sufficient to say, we're going to do better in membership. We're going to try to grow. That's a prescription for failure. How many new members net are you going to get next year? Second, what are you going to do with per capita giving to the Rotary Foundation? How much of an increase can you do? Next, how many of your members can you get to the district conference? You know, the district conference is not an optional meeting in Rotary. It's mandated by Rotary International. The governor is charged with putting it together, and he or she would appreciate your support next year in getting your members to attend this vital district meeting. Set a goal for these things so that you can start a pavement part progress for success. Second step in the 4 steps, develop a business plan to reach the goal. It isn't sufficient just to have a goal and announce it at the beginning of your year and then forget it. What kind of a business plan are you going to develop? Every business has to have a plan to succeed, and so does a Rotary Club if it's going to achieve its goal. I don't know whether you sell bread, you deliver cars, you sell insurance. In my law office, we have a chart in the back of my desk every week, and we read it. How many people did we sue last week? How many people can we sue this week? Every business has got to have a business plan if it's going to be a success. Third, after you've set a goal, after you develop the business plan to reach the goal, third, you've got to work the plan. It doesn't do any good to have a goal and a plan if you don't work it. Every week at your club meeting, you spend some time on it. You see how the people are doing in the club. You call them up during the week if you're the club president, and you help them achieve, work the goal, work the plan. And fourth, after the successes are achieved, you recognize those who have done the work, because in Rotary, peer recognition is a big job, and it's important that we thank those because we're all volunteers in this organization that we love. Now, this will not be easy. I don't pretend it is. There will always be people in your club when you do this who will wonder how you ever got to be club president. They'll wonder why they're not the club president. You will have naysayers, but you got to go around them. And don't listen to those people who are always negative, a few in every Rotary Club, wondering who you think you are. You're the leader of leaders, and your job is to lead them with influence next year. In my club, we've got an optimistic guy named Luigi. He's an Italian. He's a very optimistic guy because he's as bald as this guy right down front here. And yet every Saturday at 4 o'clock he goes in for a haircut. He's only got 2 hairs to be cut off, but he likes it. The barber is just the opposite. For him, the glass is always half empty. For my friend Luigi, the glass is always half full. So one Saturday at 4 o'clock, Luigi goes into the barber to get his 2 hairs cut off. And the barber says, "Why are you so happy today? It's a miserable rainy day." My wife and I have saved up, and we're going to make a trip to our ancestral home in Italy, and we're going to visit our home where our ancestors came. Well, the plane will probably crash in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. They don't maintain those planes the way they used to. Nothing works when you get to Italy. They don't pick up the garbage. The trains are never on time. And all the Italians know how to do is stand around with French bread in their armpits, singing songs, drinking wine, and making love, which didn't seem like such a bad idea to Luigi. But when we get there, Luigi said, "It's going to be the moment of my life because we're going to see the Pope." "You fool," the barber said, "save your money. You'll never get anywhere near the Pope. There's always 250,000 people in front of the Pope. Stay home, save your money." 3 weeks go by, And Luigi comes back singing, and Barbara says, well, I see the plane didn't crash. It was wonderful, a wide-body jet, beautiful stewardesses, 2 movies, filet mignon wrapped in bacon. Yeah, but the country was a wreck when you got there. Italy was beautiful. The flowers were out. It was springtime. And on every street corner, Italians were standing around with French bread in their armpits, singing songs, drinking wine, and making love. And the barber said, I know, but it was a waste of your money, because I know you never got to see the Pope. And a tear came to Luigi's eyes. He said, you know, it was the moment of my life. I knelt in front of him. He put his hands on my head and gave me a papal blessing. He looked me right in the eye and he said, Luigi, my son, where did you get that lousy haircut? Go around the naysayers. There's always a few in every club. Ignore them. Try to influence them to your way of thinking. Just remember, if they're kicking you in the rear, you must be out in front. And after conviction that what we're doing is God's work on earth, after a vision of the potential you see for your club next year, raise the bar to something uncommon in your club. Change it from what it is to what it ought to be. Finally, what do you feel about Rotary? What do you feel about the job you're going to do next year? What is your commitment? I could spend a lifetime telling you of my own lifetime and the moments that have occurred in front of my eyes which have strengthened my commitment of the value of what we do. I believe with all my heart and soul that Rotary is the most important non-government, non-religious, non-business organization the world has ever known. I believe it is people. And so it was 25 years ago. I was on the board of directors of Rotary International, and I don't know how many of you have been to Evanston to see our beautiful, tallest building in Evanston, about a block from Northwestern University. On the 18th floor sits the president of Rotary International, the board of directors, and on a clear day you can see all the way to San Francisco. Out the other window you can see all the way to New York City. You can see south to Chicago, north to Wisconsin. On a clear day at Rotary World Headquarters, you can see forever. In those days, we had our lunch in the 18th floor during the board meetings, and I was finishing my cake one day when an old man came walking in, ravaged with lines of 20th century Europe. And I couldn't take my eyes off of him. I was fascinated by his face. He was obviously getting a tour of the building by one of the 600 staffers we have at Rotary International. I finished my cake, and I went over and I sat down in front of him, introducing myself. And I said, "You're getting a tour of the building, aren't you?" His old eyes misted over, and he said, "I've waited for this day all my life, Rick. All my life I've wanted to come here to America to see where this idea began." "Where are you from?" "I'm from Prague, then Czechoslovakia." "And you're a Rotarian?" "I hope so. I hope so." "What do you mean you hope so?" "Well, I was once a real Rotarian, Rick. I joined the Rotary Club of Prague in 1925, in the springtime of the century. We were so proud to be affiliated with an organization that had its roots in that burgeoning nation of the 20th century, the United States of America. We wore our Rotary pins with pride. We flew the Rotary flag outside the hotel where we met every week. And I said to my wife, "Let's save up our money. I want to go to America someday. I want to go to Rotary headquarters to see where this idea began." But in 1939, he said, as his eyes misted over again, "The Nazis came to my country. It was treason to be a Rotarian. We had to disband the club. Some of our members were tortured, killed. We couldn't wear our pins. We couldn't fly the Rotary flag. And we couldn't have a Rotary club. But a few of us said, why don't we meet secretly in hiding for a second or two every week or every other week, lest we be caught and tortured, to remember that we were once real Rotarians. And so we did that, he said, for 6 years. It was a glorious day in 1945 when the Allies came to Prague. And for the second time in my life, Rick, I was a real Rotarian. I wore my pin with pride. We flew the flag outside the hotel where we met. We chartered the Rotary Club of Prague again. And I said to my wife, let's start over. Let's save up our money. I want to go to America someday. I want to see where this idea began. But just 3 years later, in 1948, the communists came to Prague. And for the second time in my life, it was treason to be a Rotarian. We had to disband the club. We couldn't wear our pins. We couldn't fly the flag. But a few of us said, well, we did it before. This can't last too long. Let's do it again. Let's meet in secret, in hiding, every week or every other week, lest we be caught. Just remember briefly that we were once real Rotarians. And so we did it again, Rick. But this time, we did that for 42 years. 42 years. How many 42 years are there in any person's lifetime? 2 if we're lucky? I just stared at this man. A life so different from my own. Being born, raised, educated, working, loving here in this great land in which we live. I couldn't even comprehend waiting 42 years. But then he began to cry gently. And he said, but last year, Rick, a miracle happened, the wall came down. I had given up hope that I would ever get to America before my life was over, and that I would never be a real Rotarian again. But the wall came down, and you and Sherry have got to come next spring in May. For the 3rd time in my lifetime, we're going to charter the Rotary Club of Prague. I made it today, Rick. I've waited for this day all my life. Thank you for talking to me. My wife is too sick now. She couldn't come, but I had to come. And Rick, once more, before I die, I'm going to be a real Rotarian. We were both crying softly. I looked into his eyes and I said, my dear friend, you've always been a real Rotarian. I'll never forget him. I saw him once. He stood a moment there. His eyes met mine and laid my spirit bare. He held my hand, then passed beyond my ken. But what I was, I will never be again. How about you? Are you in Rotary, or is Rotary in you? What do you feel about what it is we do? The miracle of it is that no matter what we do for others, it comes back into our own lives. I can promise you next year that if you raise the bar to be an uncommon Rotary Club president, you'll get an education in leadership, human relations skills, business skills, professional skills, family skills that you couldn't buy at any university and any educational institution at any price, any time in your lifetime, anywhere in the world. That's the payback for being an uncommon Rotary Club president. This is a great Pets. Thank you for asking me to be with you. I believe in what you're going to do next year with all my heart and soul. May I close with the words of a great past president of Rotary International. He was a dear friend of mine. He was a quiet theologian from Salt Lake City who for some 4 decades delivered the spoken word with the Tabernacle Choir on CBS Radio. And in 1966 and 1967, Richard L. Evans was our international president. And he addressed the Rotarians of the world at our international convention in Nice in the south of France with these penetrating words. It sometimes seems, he said, that we live as if we wondered when life was going to begin. It isn't always clear just what we're waiting for, but some of us sometimes persist in waiting so long that life slips by, finding us still waiting for something that has been going on all the time. There's no reason to doubt good intentions, but when in the world are we going to begin to live as if we understood that this is it? This is life. This is our time, our day, our generation, our one chance to do something for somebody else. This is the life in which the work of this life is to be done. This is it. Whether we are thrilled or disappointed, busy or bored, givers or takers. It's life. It's all we've got. And it's passing. What in the world are we waiting for? Conviction, vision, commitment. The uncommon Rotary Club president. In the words of the second President of the United States, John Adams, only two kinds of people in this world ever really count. Those people who make commitments and those people who keep them. Rotary Club presidents, next year, you've made your commitment. Go now and keep it.
The tree of life, I just complete a